After 5 days of intense talks early this morning at 1 a.m., Senate leaders announced that they reached a deal with the White House, a bipartisan coronavirus rescue package. Now, the actual final language of that deal, of the bill, is still being hammered out. One thing that seems certain is that it will be the largest economic stimulus package or rescue package in U.S. history. Nearly $2 trillion bill. $1 trillion after we've spent 15 months in the campaign about how you will pay for that, to address the economic fallout of the coronavirus pandemic. The details have been shifting all day as Republicans and Democrats have been fighting over their respective priorities. It remains a very fluid situation. Just one example, the big impasse we seem to be at right now, a group of Republican senators are now threatening to delay the bill because they believe the unemployment benefits are, get this, too generous for low-wage workers. The White House predicted a Senate vote by tonight, but that vote has yet to happen. If and when the Senate passes the bill, the House will have to vote on it before it goes to the president. One of the members of Congress who's been digging through the fine print of the bill all day, Democratic Congresswoman Katie Porter of California. She joins us now. I want to note, Congresswoman is currently self-quarantining after experiencing possible symptoms of coronavirus. She's been tested and is awaiting the results. So let me begin, Congresswoman, by asking you how you feel.
I feel tired. I've been sneezing. I spent a lot of the day today and the last week in bed on conference calls, doing the best I can to stay awake, take notes, and follow what's happening. But I'm grateful that my symptoms have been mild to moderate. And I really have a lot of concern about all the public health and everyone out there right now who's either feeling sick or worried about getting sick.
So you've been going through the legislative language. I know that there's a lot circulating around. I wonder if you can give us maybe a good and bad column in terms of your read on where this is right now, what you like that's in there, what you're concerned about. Let's start with what you think is good that is in this bill.
Yeah, I actually went through the summary of what we believe is going to be in this package. As you know, we haven't seen language yet, and I actually marked it up exactly this way: green, good; red, bad. So here's some of the green good. $100 billion for our hospitals and our healthcare providers. That money is critically needed right now. $45 billion for FEMA disaster grants, and lots of money for state and local government stabilization. All of that is really, really good. Also, some really good news for our small business owners. For the first time, what's on the table is actually grants that would not have to be repaid. So small businesses would be able to get help and not have to worry about repaying it, because it's going to be a long time for some of them until their business recovers. That's the good.
All right. What's marked in red on your copy? What's the bad?
So there's bad news here for patients, which is really concerning to me. One of the things we're told is, well, this bill is going to provide for free testing. Well, I already held the CDC director's feet to the fire to get free testing. Free testing was in our last bill. What's not in this bill is free treatment. That is covering costs for uninsured people who have free treatment, or covering the out-of-pocket costs that people might face for treatment. And those things go hand in hand. A lot of people will hesitate to go get tested if they're symptomatic, if they're worried about the cost of treatment. So that's one of my concerns. It's an area that Democrats know that we have to do better on. My second big bucket of concern is I'm very worried about the accountability measures here. I was very involved in watching the bank bailout with TARP, the Troubled Asset Relief Program. That was $700 billion. Here we're looking at a similarly sized fund. We're told around $500 billion for the largest corporations. But as we saw with TARP, the accountability mechanisms are not strong enough. It's not good enough to have an inspector general or oversight panel on the back end. The money will be out the door and in the pockets of the largest corporations. And I'll give you one example that just specifically really highlights where I think there's an opportunity to still improve this bill. In the bill, there is up to $10,000 per worker tax credit for businesses that retain employees on payroll. That's terrific. That's going to be a big help in keeping people on payroll. But if you're a small business, you have to choose. Do you want that SBA loan, or do you want that $10,000 worker retention payroll tax credit? If you're a large business, you don't have to make a choice. You can get a bailout and that tax credit. We should put small businesses and large businesses on a level playing field here.
In terms of the mechanics of this, it's a tricky situation procedurally. A lot of members are, some of your colleagues are actually hospitalized. Ben McAdams from Utah, I believe, who has tested positive, has had fairly severe symptoms. A lot are self-quarantining, a lot are away. What is your understanding of how this actually is going to go down as a vote in the next day or so?
So I spent over 6.5 hours today on conference calls, and I have no idea after 6.5 hours how exactly the House is going to be voting on this. We were told no to remote voting. That's been consistent. I think that we've been told no to proxy voting. I think they're expecting people to try to come back. There's still talk about whether or not we could do this with a voice vote or unanimous consent. But clearly, members like me who are symptomatic cannot leave their homes. It's a public health risk, and there are a lot of members that are going to have difficulty traveling all the way from the other side of the country to make this vote fast enough. So we're waiting on the Senate to take action. A lot of my colleagues I know are hopping in cars and starting to drive, but those are not people in California. They're not people in Alaska. They're not people in Hawaii. It's going to be easier for some folks to get there than others. And the problem is my constituents need my voice right now. They need me to be voting in their interests, and it's impossible for me to do that because of this public health crisis.
The final question, it does seem to me, I know that the idea here is to pass this somehow, and there's going to be a recess, and I understand why recesses happen, but the entire world, including me talking to Unite, has been adapting to how you can do your job remotely if you can and how to make it work. It really does seem, if this is going to go on for several months, that Congress is going to have to figure out how to do this remotely, right?
Well, you would hope so. I mean, I think it's wrong for Congress to act like we're an exception. We're asking businesses, schools, nonprofits, healthcare providers, so many different entities to step up in this moment, to meet the moment, and to be flexible and to adapt. So I do think Congress is going to have to do that. I mean, we have had lots and lots of conference calls, so information sharing is happening. But the single most common thing I heard on these conference calls today was, excuse me, you might have yourself on mute. You're going to need to unmute yourself. So it's not easy to do this with several hundred members. And so yeah. I really trust Chairman McGovern, the chair of the Rules Committee, and I know that he, along with Zoe Lofgren, the chair of House Admin, are working to figure out how we can honor our duties to our constituents, but also not risk public health.
All right, Congresswoman Katie Porter, thank you for being with me tonight. Joining me now